Welcome back, everybody. A major milestone on Wall Street. Citi naming Jane Fraser its next CEO after Michael Corbett announced he will retire in February of next year. This will make Fraser the first woman to run a mega bank. So who is she, and just how significant is this for the banking industry and for women overall? Jeff Hart is a principal with Piper Sandler, where he covers Citi and the other major banks. And Joanne Lipman is a CNBC contributor and author of the national bestseller, That's What She Said, What Men and Women Need to Know About Working Together. Joanne, let me start with you. I mean, this is obviously a big deal because she is the first female, Ms. Fraser, to run a large New York City multinational bank. But she is only one person, and females are still badly underrepresented at the upper ranks of all American corporations.
Right. Tyler, you are so correct. Thanks so much for that, because this is incredibly significant. And yet, at the same time, that is why it is so infuriating that it just shows you how little progress that we have made across the last few decades, really. I mean, Jane Fraser is now one of 39 women who are CEOs in the Fortune 500. That's 7.8%. That is a historic high. And it truly is so frustrating because every time we have a woman break in, we have this same conversation. We had this conversation about Mary Barra at GM, about Ginny Rometty at IBM, about Indra Nooyi years ago at PepsiCo. Every time we say, okay, she's crashed through that glass ceiling, we finally have made it. And yet those numbers are stubbornly, like barely moving, even though, by the way, women make up more than half of all college graduates, which has been true for 3 decades. And as of this year, they make up more than half of the workforce.
Yeah, but the progress has, by any basic yardstick that I'm aware of, been pretty glacial. Jeff, let me turn to you and get to the question of why do you think Citi chose her? She has a 16-year career with the bank. She's not a lifer at the bank the way Mr. Corbett was, but she has broad experience. What do you think she will do at Citi, and has it changed in any way your view of its stock?
Yeah, it's interesting. Really, the surprise today to me was the retirement, not so much transition. Jane Fraser's kind of been in my mind the number 2 or next in line ever since she was named president of Citigroup. Not a year ago, but last October. So her being in that position isn't so much a surprise as Mike finally deciding that he's going to retire and step aside. As an interesting maybe side note, most of my conversations today with investors have been about her qualifications and kind of what she's going to do strategically. It really hasn't come up that she's a female versus a male, which may be a step in the right direction if people are more focused on her qualifications than her gender. But no, she's been at Citigroup for a while. She's been in multiple regions. She's been in multiple businesses. And while investors don't know her that well yet, she hasn't been out in front of the street a whole lot. I think Investor Day back in May was kind of going to be the launching point for her, but unfortunately with COVID that got postponed. But I mean, from what I'm able to gather from people inside of Citigroup and across the industry in general, I mean, she's very well respected and I think is going to be a good person for the job.
You've got a $56 a share price target on the stock. It's trading roughly there right now, $51 a share. What would make you change that view? And then I'll come back to you, Joanne.
I think, when you look at Citigroup, the real key here is, to some extent, how does the environment play out? They're trading at a discount to peers. I think that's largely because they've got a big credit card business, and that's where credit losses tend to show up first. So, I mean, I think to the extent we get into a better economy and things keep going the right way, I think Citigroup's a stock people start looking at more, and I would expect to see that valuation gap narrow. So, if anything, I'd like to see the price go above our price target as opposed to us having to lower our price target.
Joanne, let me come back to you and ask what is, on the surface, maybe a juvenile question, but maybe revealing at the same time. Why haven't women made more progress in boardrooms at the upper levels of companies? Is it a question of pipeline? Is it a question of discrimination? Is it a question that women don't get as long, they're held to a different standard, and if they don't succeed, they're out quicker than men? What is it?
Yeah, it's a combination of all of the above. It's not, the one thing it is not is a pipeline issue. We know for sure that women are entering the workforce in historic high numbers. And as I said, they make up more than half of the workforce at this point. What's happening is they're not getting promoted, they're not getting mentored. And there's a lot of, that unconscious bias. We've all heard about unconscious bias. Most companies now have unconscious bias training, but the research is showing that it's simply not moving the needle. And in fact, when you have this unconscious bias training, very often what ends up happening is a backlash among the primarily white men who are the primary targets of the training. They feel like either, okay, I've been trained, I'm done, I have no bias, or they have there's this sort of backlash that women are getting preferential treatment is their belief, and it's going to hurt them. So what we need to understand is that every piece of research shows you that when you have a diverse working group, and that's not just by gender, it's by race, it's by age, ethnicity, and when you have diverse working groups, they're actually more financially successful, and there has been a boatload of research across many years that have actually shown this to be true. And so we actually all need to understand this, as do shareholders.